3, 4, 5. Okay, let me do a wiggle around here so that the Google Pixel counter realizes this is a different video, okay? You got it? Different video. Don't stop my upload. I really have to comment about culture shock. You know, I spent my first summer in California when I was 9 and 10 years old. Summer 60, anyway. And it wasn't too big of a culture shock because California was still pretty okay by then. You know, it's the Beatle thing hadn't taken over and stuff like that. It wasn't actually people, everybody just called me the good kid, the polite kid, and stuff like that. It wasn't that bad until I came back for the second time. But what I really want to comment about here is how my knowledge of that culture shock of the 60s and 70s in California shaped the way I thought about what happened today. This is Friday, Shabbat. I think it's like Friday the 13th or something, you know. I went to town late today because I spent most of the morning, a good part of the day, messing with my solar system, because you may not be able to tell it right now, but actually clouds are about to clear. I may pick up a few more amp hours before sunset, but they won't be much. And what I really want to talk about is that the fact that I'm an old man. My mother and father transmitted all their knowledge to me and stuff. I'm the keeper of the oral tradition, and my father was born in 1905, my mother in 1912, which means their knowledge from their parents goes back to the middle 1800s, really. And I know how to behave around here is that, number one, you greet everybody, whether you're, unless you're really on the outs with them or something like that. You greet them and you do so politely. To a bigger man like me, you're supposed to nod your head first and I nod second. We have all kind of rules. Keep yourself at arm's distance away from me, because as Texans we sometimes talk with our hands, and if I accidentally hit you, it's not aggravated, it's not assault and stuff like that. People close the space all the time, but I think I'm going to keep this fairly short. Today I'm well aware of the fact that we're having a huge invasion of people that are coming from California and from New York, with the #1 welfare state in the union. Look it up. #1 welfare recipient. And now the sun's finally breaking through that cloud there, so you might be able to see my beautiful, dichromatic? It's actually polychromatic eyes, since one dose of pilocarpine years ago altered my eye color. Now I see a lot of people wearing uniforms, especially working for the big sand industry up here, because we're doing oil fracking here. Which, by the way, I don't care what you fuckers say. Oil fracking is never barely, please. Plus, I know geology. I've had a couple semesters of it. You're just not going to con me. And I can see my phone's actually covering my mouth. I don't care. But today in town, especially on a Friday afternoon, I see all kind of people who are coming into like Walmart to cash their checks, which means they don't have a local bank account. They need the money immediately. Or they don't want the IRS knowing that they're receiving welfare in another state, but they're here working, because we always got plenty of jobs down here. Honestly, I think the highest our unemployment rate ever got was like 3.7 or 8. We're usually around 1.2. You know, we're one of the few places in this country where you can actually come and get like a nice 3-bedroom house, rock brick house in downtown of the county seat and stuff like that. You can get a 3-bedroom house that's in immaculate condition, older but immaculate, for like $900 a month. You can't even get a small apartment in Austin for that. In San Francisco, the same house would cost you $8,000 to $12,000 a month to lease. Get real. What do you think people are flocking here? But those same people have no freaking manners. They know nothing about our rules of greet, head nodding, none of that. Because today, only the people that knew me actually, and there were several people. I just stopped after all. There were several people that I dropped my alpha male status for and greeted them first without them, because they're, by our rules, you're supposed to greet me first. I'm an elder, and I'm 2 or 3 times their size. That's the rule here. Big men, you always tip your hat and say hello, you nod first, or you might just kick your ass. These are Texas rules, and now I have full sun in my eyes, which means I can't read my clock counter. I'll try to continue on until it just, but I noticed today it's been increasing. It depends on the time of day and which day of the week, but today was just awful. Only the people, and I ran into so many weirdos where like I said, I have the rarest personality type. I can be very socially gregarious, and I still love solitude at the same time. When I'm in and around people, I'm very chatty and very convivial, very congenial, and a great conversationalist. But today was just like dead silence. People weren't making eye contact, which is a requirement in Texas society. Anybody who's been in Texas long enough knows that you make contact, you at least nod, you say good morning, good afternoon, have a good day, whatever. And over 99% of the people that I saw today did not do that. That's culture shock. This is one of the reasons I usually choose to go right at the right time in the morning, just before lunch, not too early in the morning, because especially around the first part of the month, because that's when all the drunks and psychos get their SSI or checks, and they're coming in, they're walking out. They ain't got a bite of food on them, but they got 10 cases of beer, okay? And they've got all their Social Security check in cash so they can go out and then buy drugs. So I've had to many times. I've traveled a lot. I've had to deal with culture shock all over the place, both in the English-speaking and Spanish-speaking world, etc. But here in my home, where we have been for 200 years, we founded this place to find our county seat to be overrun by people that haven't even taken, and I've been hearing this for a decade or more of people who come here. Like one guy from Colorado said he's having no trouble fitting in because he's working like in a oil field, etc. But he said that his wife couldn't just get into any of the women's groups or church groups. They treated her like an outsider because she really didn't know how to treat the locals and stuff like that. And a lot of the people that were in those groups were not locals themselves. Culture shock is a real thing, which if I were running this planet, I would probably let you all divide into your own nations and tribes until this whole planet was just covered with walls, which you guard and you keep everybody out. I have no trouble with your tribalism, although it's prohibited by Jewish law. No piercings. I'm not even supposed to have shaved my head, but I have a sebum problem, and so I do what I do. But today, let me take a look. I have plenty of time. Today, it was just overwhelming. Actually, I kept count. There was about 40 to 45 people while I was taking a smoke break out on the patio that I said, good afternoon to or whatever, and they just pretended that I wasn't there. I'm used to this to some of the new females that are not from here. They're from big urban areas where they don't talk to any men at all and stuff like that. But in this area, all men, especially as you come here to get a job, you're supposed to learn our rules of conduct, which especially if a elder male who's twice or three times your size is kind enough to address you first, you always go, yeah, good morning or good afternoon, how are you, sir? And they don't do it anymore. And you know, these people will not be here forever. They may not even last long enough for the next census count, which starts next year. But in the meantime, you people that invade other spaces, and you know what, even back during the Depression, the last great migration, actually this has always been a highly mobile workforce. And, you know, as people generally moved around, they learned the local behaviors and cultures. And otherwise, they couldn't get a job. They couldn't, fit in. You wouldn't be accepted anywhere. And you people that move around, and like I have, I've always learned to speak the local language, local dialect. Even in down east Maine, me and Martha are going over to Bar Harbor to check on our lobster pots. Then we're going up to Bangor to watch them damn tourists. And there goes a flock, our first flock of ducks of the season. I'm calling it. Summer's over. They're here. Although we have ducks here year-round now. But you know what? The Europeans call us ugly Americans when actually Europeans are some of the most ugly, genetically defective, perverted people I've ever, and that's well documented. As a matter of fact, my entire family has seen all of Europe and told me not to go. I'm really the youngest. My mother only loved Venice and Versailles for her own personal reasons. So this is really all about culture shock and how people in this country, thanks to cell phones and other things and mass media, you think you can go anywhere and act any way you want to without repercussions. No, you can't. You're here in the heart of Texas, in the original colony, and if you don't respect me, I start flinging shit like the turd flinging monkey.